So I am so pleased to be here today to help launch dialogues on race and equity. And I'm Libby Garvey. I'm chair of the Arlington County Board. And I have with me today my colleague and fellow county board member, Christian Dorsey, who was chair last year when we started on this sort of official journey, and we'll talk about that soon. We also have our newly appointed Chief Race and Equity Officer, Samia Bird, who has been with Arlington County for a long time, and this is in a new position, and we're just delighted to have her here. And Alicia Jones-McLeod, who's Executive Director of Challenging Racism, which is our key partner in working with us to implement this really very important effort. So last year, as I kind of mentioned, County Board adopted a resolution. We had a focus area led by our chair, and then we adopted a resolution on race and equity that aims to address systemic racism in our community and build an equity lens for the work we do across our government. And this resolution, that pushed us forward in building this particular dialogue that we're launching today. And it's also pushing us to collect and disaggregate data to identify where we've got gaps and where we have issues with disparities in Arlington County and our government. So we will begin on this road today. We're going to be doing an assessment and then an analysis of where our current plans, programs, and services, policies, and public engagements, where those happen to actually exacerbate disparities. You know, because government so much is about we serve our people, and sometimes we react a lot to who the people we hear from, community complaints. And sometimes the way things are set up, we don't hear from everybody. And that can lead to some disparities that we're really trying to address. And these dialogues that we're launching is part of that whole effort. So I like to say that what we're working for is we're trying to get from a system where we've got some systemic racism, we're going to identify it, work it through, and end up with a system where we have systemic equity. And Christian, I'd love to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about why equity. What made you make that our focus last year?
Well, thank you, Libby. You know, why equity is the million-dollar question, and it's especially important to consider it in the context of Arlington, a community that by many measures is successful. But the overall success of our community can mask disparities, which, if we don't explore them, can lead to unintentionally harmful public policy. And when you think about all of the things that we do in local government, making significant investments to improve our community, if we overlook or ignore areas of past disparities, then we further cement inequity and exacerbate wealth and income inequality. And if we're going to have an equitable Arlington, one that is marked by all people being valued, having access to great education, and the ability to have a quality of life that is healthy and safe, regardless of their race or background, this has to be a guiding principle for our local government. And we'll know it when we have all of our populations that have access to community conditions and opportunities that they need to reach their full potential and to experience an optimal well-being. And it'll be realized when one's status, regardless of what it is, whether you're a person of color, woman, you're poor, you're an immigrant, you're a refugee, you're non-heteronormative, you are differently abled, or regardless of where you live in our community, that should not be predictive of your life's outcomes or your opportunities. So this is incredibly important work for us to engage in. And racial equity is about our closing the gaps, closing those disparities that exist, while also improving outcomes for everyone. So we're going to be moving beyond simply talking about services to talking about our policies and our institutions and the structures that govern our community. So why don't we take a little bit to understand more about how these dialogues on race and equity are going to move us toward this goal in our community. So why don't we start off with Samia Bird. And Samia, what are the overall goals that you intend to be accomplished with the dialogues on race and equity?
Thank you, Christian. I think the bottom line goal with the conversations is really for us to be able to lay a foundation where we're normalizing the conversation. You know, it's been a challenge. It's always been a challenge when we talk about race and racism in this country. And if we can't first start to talk about it, to understand and get some perspectives on where we are as a community, then we don't necessarily know how to move forward from that. So the number one goal is to allow us to be in dialogue with one another so we can understand different perspectives, thoughts, interests, concerns, issues related to race and racism in Arlington that helps us to build a foundation to understand, okay, how to then, knowing what we know, gather this information, share experiences, be able to start normalizing the concepts around race and equity, then begin to organize ourselves to understand, okay, well, what's our capacity to be able to then move forward and operationalize how we can actually look at our policies and procedures and understand what we mean when we talk about disparities, et cetera. So what we really want to do, again, with these conversations, and the ultimate goal is for us able to reach some shared understanding about our priorities around advancing racial equity and understand where we all are on a journey, which I often refer to. We are all in different places on the journey, and to know how we can move ourselves forward as a community together to address some of these issues within our systems.
Well, you know, people being at different places on the journey is incredibly important, and dialogue is one way to at least get everybody, if not at the same place, but on the same road. So that is very much a great opportunity that we're intending to offer for our community. So Alicia, would you want to talk about the specific elements that are going to be a part of the whole dialogue effort that we're about to pursue?
Yes, thank you, Christian. We have 4 key elements that are going to be part of this program, and each one plays a different role in us reaching the goal. So the first one is we're rolling out an assessment on perspectives and race and equity in Arlington. The assessment is going to be an online tool, and it's going to be in multiple languages. We're going to use that to really gauge where people are and what people think about race and equity in Arlington and the community, their individual experiences, and at the county level. And then we also have DRE in your community, which is going to be a series of virtual roundtables for anyone who wants to participate. Those are going to be conversations and dialogues around race and equity in Arlington. So they're going to be interactive, they're going to be 2-hour sessions, and people can sign up for those as well. The third portion is going to be DRE Together. We're inviting as many of our partners and nonprofit organizations, civic associations, businesses, groups around the area to really work with us and partner to engage people within their own network. So we're basically bringing people that are leaders in organizations, and we're asking them to come and partake in a training, and then leading those dialogues in their own network with their own people. And then later this year, we're going to launch DRE in your community, in your neighborhood. And that's going to be offering tools for anyone who wants to have a conversation with family, neighbors, and friends. And a lot of these conversations happen around the Thanksgiving table. So how about we help people to have the tools to be able to do that over the holidays and going forward, because I think that's very important. A lot of people don't know how to have these conversations. They don't know how to start. And we're going to be working with the county in order to give people tools that they very badly need in order to have these conversations with people that they know and love, people that they like in their backyards and in their communities.
Alicia, that is just great. Could you, so let's say I'm listening and I would like to participate. How do I do that? I mean, if somebody's listening at home and they want to help, or they want to be a part of it, or they maybe just want to kind of observe and check it out for a bit. So what should people do if they're interested?
So first, they should go onto the website. We have a DRE website on the Arlington County website. So that web link will be listed at the bottom of the screen. We'll make sure that people can get to that. But they'll have 2 ways to participate at that point. One, they can take the assessment. And let me be clear, everyone should take the assessment. Everyone should tell us their thoughts. Everyone should share with us. We want to hear from every single person. And we're going to have that in different languages. We're going to have paper copies. There'll be all kinds of ways.
And it'll be anonymous, right? What if people are maybe not comfortable people knowing? It's not going they're not going to have their names revealed or anything like that, right?
No, this is going to be anonymous. We are gathering information and data about where people are. So we want to know what communities and different, what communities are represented. And we want to make sure that we have a group of people that are representative of Arlington, not just one specific age group, not one specific gender, not one specific race or ethnicity. So we want people from all across the spectrum. And then that assessment is going to roll up into a report combined with information that we gather from the conversations and the dialogues that people are having in the communities. So we're going to have in-person, well, not in-person, but virtual sessions. And then we're also going to have this assessment that are both going to roll up. So the virtual opportunities for you to attend a training, that registration will be live as well on the website. So you'll be able to go right there, take the assessment, come right out of the assessment, and then register for the actual dialogue that we're doing. And then the partners will be able to register as well. So engage how you will. We look forward to it.
That's great. And so we're going to get a lot of information. Samia, do you want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen with all that information?
I think one of the really great things about being able to have so many conversations across cultures, include as many people as possible, is that we'll really get to learn and understand what people think, what people feel, where they are, and get some thoughts from our assessment from them, as well as all of these conversations. We're expecting to capture the input from all of the conversations, whether they're the community-wide conversations, the conversations that our partners are going to be hosting, as well as the individual conversations with neighbors, so that we can then roll that up into a report to the board that says, here's what we heard, here's what we learned in terms of where we are, and here are some recommendations on how we might be able to move forward as a community. Because while we are having conversations, I just want to make clear that we're not stopping at conversations. Conversations is actually just the beginning. And again, this is a foundation and a tool for us to use in terms of how we might be able to put some things into action forward in addressing systemic racism in actionable ways. And so that's what we anticipate bringing to the board at the end of these conversations to begin the next phase of work.
Oh, that's great. Kristen, a lot's come from your focus from last year.
Well, and you're carrying it through. So, I mean, this is just so incredibly monumental and important. And anything that is significant and important and complex is a big problem. And certainly we have the humility to recognize government is not going to be able to solve it alone. But if this is, in fact, as Samia mentioned, laying the foundation, in order to finish the edifice, we need a lot of different hands on deck, a lot of partners. And we've talked a little bit about partner organizations who can join in on this effort. Can you speak a little bit more about what we endeavor for the partners to do and how people who are affiliated with another group could become an official partner in this effort?
So I think what we really anticipate or intend is that every partner, every stakeholder we have would participate in this training, like Alicia mentioned, and they would be trained up to then be able to have conversations with their stakeholder groups. So they would be leading these conversations themselves. So having them trained gives them the tools to be able to then have really good conversations that are difficult and challenging with their stakeholders and reach a broader number of people. So it's more like a train-the-trainer type of approach. So we train you, you train them, and we can reach more people that way, which is really important because we want to make sure that we can get to hear voices that we typically don't often hear and that we don't often engage with. So we're expecting to cast our net very wide for our partnership and our partner participation to stakeholder groups throughout the community that focus and advocate for race and equity for their particular constituents. So we're talking about faith-based community leaders, businesses, everyone. We want to be a partner in every sphere of influence that they have so that we can reach more people. And I don't know, Alicia, if you want to talk a little bit more about the partner experience and what people can expect when they become a partner with us?
Yes, I would love to. So we have a training called Learning to Lead. And that training is 40 hours in person. People get down and dirty and do a lot of training on how to facilitate these conversations. We are trying to take a couple of key elements from that training to be able to have people in the community facilitate conversations. The first part is going to be actually going through the curriculum that they're going to be talking about. And then the second part is going to be giving them tools in order to deal with the conversations that they may have to have about race and equity. Because as you said, we're all in this journey and we're not starting at the same place. So we need to give them some contextual tools to be able to deal with the questions that may come from their group. And then the third part is practice. Because I will tell you, that is a key part in any kind of training that you do, whatever that is, especially when you know it's going to be difficult being on the spot. So we want to make sure that people are as comfortable with the conversations and with the environment as possible. So we're going to do some training in that, some practice in that as well, so people are able to kind of ask questions and say, what do I do with this point, or how do I answer this kind of a question? And we'll be there with our facilitators, able to help them through.
And I would say, too, we're looking for 100 partners, right? At least 100 partners. If we can get 100, yeah, which would be awesome. And they're going to participate in a 3-hour facilitated training, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And we're asking them to host amongst their stakeholder groups at least 2-hour interactive conversations within their organizations. So that's how we're planning to spread the reach, expand our reach and the capacity.
That's great. I think we've all heard, people say, I've been through this before. I've done this before. It does, nothing happens. People's feelings get hurt. We've done. How is this going to be different? And Christian, you and I talked a little bit earlier about bringing different groups together. Would you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's an important point of what we're trying to do here.
Well, certainly, particularly people who have been, who are a part of a racial or ethnic minority or any group that's been marginalized in our country, has the lived experience of dealing with it their entire lives. Otherwise, people know intellectually that this is America's original sin, if you will, that's been around since the founding. And when things just go on for so long, they seem intractable. You don't believe that there's any hope in engaging. And, one of the key dimensions of systemic racism and oppression and marginalization is that the conversation usually just takes place among various affinity groups, people who either have the lived experience or people who don't. But rarely do we provide opportunities for those individuals to engage with one another, so that there can be the mutual learning that takes place, but also the consciousness raising that is a prerequisite if we're going to bridge these gaps and bridge these issues. It's certainly not reasonable to expect that someone should intuitively understand the lived experience of someone who's been marginalized if they've had the privilege of never having been so. And by offering this opportunity to our community for them to understand how it's affected the environment that they live in, to me is an essential first step and a novel first step in addressing race in a community.
All right. Christian, thank you. That makes it a great wrap. So everybody listening, I want to encourage you, take the questionnaire that's out there. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, what you think. It's anonymous. If you think this is a bunch of bunk and we shouldn't be doing it, please take that questionnaire. If you think this is something really crucial we should be doing, take it. If you think we're doing it wrong, take the questionnaire, because we really do want to hear from everybody. And it's just the start on some dialogues and some conversations that by the end, I hope everybody will participate in and feel comfortable doing. But the start is that questionnaire. Thank you all so much. It's really exciting to be started on this. It's great to have everybody here.
Thank you, Samia, Alicia, and Libby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian, for getting us started on this. It's great.
Yeah.